Today is Christmas Day, and on Christmas Day in the year 1776, George Washington crossed the Delaware River. Abraham Lincoln, a little less than a century later, in 1846, said, quote, "It is an established maxim in morals that he who makes an assertion without knowing whether it is true or false is guilty of falsehood, and the accidental truth of the assertion does not justify or excuse him." End quote. A treatise concerning the Christians and their believed lies. If Jesus had not been declared to be God by his followers, the religion that came to be associated with it and about him would have remained a small sect within Judaism and would have not attracted polytheistic people outside of that. In fact, during Jesus' lifetime, he did not call himself God, and his own followers did not either. Jesus taught them that he would be the new king of Israel after God inaugurated his kingdom. He would be the anointed one, the Messiah, human and not God. Archaeology and history cannot demonstrate that miracles occurred in the past, and this eliminates the entire resurrection of Jesus, including all of the other miracles that were claimed of him long after he was crucified. Historically speaking, there has been absolutely no person who has came back to life after being dead for multiple days. Two Jewish historians writing in the world of classical antiquity, both Josephus and Philo, agree that Pilate, mentioned in the biblical text, was never on record of giving any crucified criminal a burial after death, but quite to the contrary. In fact, no governor of any Roman province within the entire Roman Empire gave into the sensibilities and the wishes of what the religious wanted to do with their dead criminals. Jesus would have been the only exception. For the record, however, the idea of divine beings on earth among mortals is not something new to Christianity. Jesus was not the only man to be conceived of as having been the only miracle-working Son of God in the ancient world. In fact, in Greek, Roman, and Jewish antiquity, for example, there have been attestations to other figures as being both human and divine. This is their common mythology. One only think of Hercules, Jupiter, Zeus, or Apollo. One does not need a degree in religious studies or a degree in historical antiquity to understand these things and to read ancient historical texts. The Christians borrowed from other religious ideas and mythologies in order to create their own religion, a compendium of multiple religious and mythological ideas blended into one. For example, the divine right of kings and deified emperors, Jesus being called God, all of which occurred within a specific context at the same time in history. Without the resurrection of Jesus, the Christian faith is dead, and the Gospels are our only stories, which makes it easier concerning our knowledge about the claimed resurrection thereof. These sources are not the kind of sources that historians want when they are attempting to confirm what most likely happened or occurred in the past. First, I will start with the dating of the Gospels, which are not contemporary with the actual events that they claim to narrate. Mark was written from 65 to 70, Matthew and Luke 80 to 85, John from 90 to 95, and Paul around 50. And, of course, no one who was claimed to be there actually wrote about it. And these are decades after the events have occurred. Now, no historian knows who wrote these documents. They are made-up stories, which were edited later on after the event of Jesus' death. The followers of Jesus were Aramaic-speaking, illiterate peasants from Galilee. They were not literate, they were not educated, and over 3/4 of the entire ancient world population could not read, and even a smaller portion of that could not write. The Gospels were written in the Koine Greek language by highly educated and rhetorically trained writers who were skilled in Greek compositions decades and decades, almost half a century or more, after the events were proposed to have happened. which it did not follow Jesus. They did not follow Jesus, nor did they claim to be his followers. And so you might ask, where did these scholars get these stories from? These stories were told for over half a century from one illiterate person to another, and they were changed and improved over the preceding decades, modified and edited through transmission before a single person ever wrote it down. Their stories were changed through transmission again concerning their attempt to convert people. No one took notes, no one cared, save only their frivolous intentions. It is very unlikely that these stories actually resemble the ones originally told, and there are differences between the Gospels, diametrically opposed statements concerning thus. According to Mark and John, for example, Jesus died on 2 different days, and they do not agree as to the time of day. Which people supported him or mocked him is largely dependent upon which gospel you read, which contradicts the other. The same can be said concerning which people went where and when, how they got there, why they went, and what they saw. It all depends on which text that you read, because all of them differ on the matter. All of this is child's play, of course. The main reason why that we cannot trust and do not trust these stories concerning the resurrection of Jesus is that the actual claim itself is diametrically in opposition to the task of historical inquiry, history itself. We cannot prove the past. What we can do is to give evidence of the past and shed some evidence concerning thus. Some evidence is more certain than other evidence of things that have actually occurred. These stories defy probability, they defy sentience, and defy all logic. This is the dilemma. The Christians could not prove it, so they decided to lie about, and then they did eventually convince themselves of fictitious stories that they believe to be true today. The Christian religion is a theological assertion, a claim that has no integrity for historical facts that are based on a respect for historical proof. I shall go further. Not only does man lie, but God does too. God only knows because, of course, the only thing that we can know about God is from a compilation of books written by men pretending to speak for a God that does not speak for itself. Apparently, God doesn't even know what the world is like, how it came to be, or even how he designed it, not to mention how it works. Science had to do that for him. And so men did an unintentional disservice to God by creating a book about things which they did not understand and then ascribing it as God's word, even though it wasn't. So no God could be as stupid as the Bible has made him out to be. And so even if a God did exist, he would not be as stupid as the men who made up stories about him. If only men worshipped God more than their doctrine and their lies concerning what they ascribed to that which they don't know. Thank you. And again, I will end with Abraham Lincoln. It is an established maxim in morals that he who makes an assertion without knowing whether it is true or false is guilty of falsehood, and the accidental truth of the assertion does not justify or excuse him.